Today, we will once again be taking a flight on a trip over to Lebanon to conduct an examination of the wondrous structures found in Baalbek. Come along as we learn the mysteries behind this ancient site. Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon is an ancient settlement that once stood at a major crossroad of caravan routes from the north, east, and south. Over time, Baalbek has been inhabited and transformed by many cultures and peoples. After the biblical Canaanites came the Greeks under Alexander the Great. Then came the Romans. All of these peoples had chosen a very special place for their temples and places of worship. A hill called Heliopolis by Alexander the Great. To this day, the ruins of the sanctuaries of the Roman era lie there. Among the most stately structures were a temple dedicated to Jupiter, and one to honor Bacchus, the god of pleasure and wine. And at first glance, these temples look much the same as others built by the Romans. Foundations of stone, channon, and lots of ruinous stones scattered about the ground, and remains of figures of gods. Nevertheless, the temple complex at Baalbek holds a peculiar mystery associated with its foundation stones. There are 3 stone blocks known as girlathon. These stones are 62 feet long and 19 feet wide and weigh 800 tons each, and are processed so precisely that one would be hard-pressed to fit even a razor blade between them. In the Baalbek quarry, researchers found 3 more stone giants, which are even larger than the ones placed at the temple, and are considered to be the largest stones ever created by humans. The pregnant woman stone, the stone of the sun, and the forgotten stone each weigh over 1,000 tons. It remains a mystery even today how these stones could have been made and moved. And yet another mystery at Baalbek are the stone columns used in several temples at the site. Today, the 6 Corinthian columns still standing are a major landmark at Baalbek, and they were once part of the Temple of Jupiter, which had 54 columns of this type. But these columns are special and are the largest ever erected in ancient times. Each column is 74 feet high with an outside diameter of 7 feet, and they tower over the columns at the Acropolis in Athens by over 2 times. These columns were not made from a single stone, but were constructed using several individual parts, interconnected at the center of the column. The truly amazing feature of these columns is where the stone came from, because these columns are made from rose granite found only in Egypt at the Aswan area, and that quarry is over 900 miles away from the site at Baalbek. This temple is said to have been built by the Romans in the 2nd or 3rd century. And although the Romans are known for their network of roads, these roads were made primarily of cobblestones and would have never supported the amount of weight of these stones. And that is assuming they had adequate carts or trailers capable of transporting stones of this size and weight and using various beats of burden in a literal wagon train configuration, similar to the well-known 20-mule teams seen on Baraxo packaging. And let us not forget that they would have had to traverse the Red Sea by boat unless they used an overland route the entire way. But the stone columns at the Temple of Jupiter were not the only rose granite columns built in this area, as that the Temple of Bacchus also used this same type of stone for its columns, and that is a monumental amount of stone transported over hundreds of miles in ancient times. There is evidence that the Romans had sophisticated lifting and pulling devices, as evidenced by the documents and records of Vesuvius, which give an analysis of this process by stating 2 beams are required for the jib, the thickness of which is dependent upon the amount of weight expected. And they are connected at the top with an iron clasp and divided at the bottom like an inverted V. At the head of the beam are attached ropes, which are arranged all around to keep it stable, and a pulley is suspended from the top. This bas-relief found at the site of Via in Italy shows the process being performed by two men and could explain how stones were lifted onto carts or even lifted into place at Baalbek for the temples. But this process cannot explain the lifting and transport of stones weighing as much as hundreds and hundreds of tons over such a long distance. It is also quite a mystery why rose granite was required for these columns, as that stone of equal quality could be found at sites much, much closer to Baalbek. The foundation stones at the Temple of Jupiter weigh in excess of 800 tons and would have exceeded any possible lifting capacity of Roman bulwarks and tripod cranes. And let us not forget the fact that these stones are situated on top of smaller large stones and would have had to have been lifted into place once they were transported from the quarry area. There are several theories regarding the three giant stones left at the quarry, and they range from the stones being just too large to move at all, or they were possibly rejects and were to be used for other projects later. A third possibility is that the stones were part of a much larger structure abandoned long before the Roman era at the site. Even though there is no tentative evidence that these stones are older than the other stones at the temple. It is important, however, to point out that stone cannot be dated like organic matter can, and the age of these stones could be hundreds, if not thousands of years older than the adjoining stones at the site. The practice of using massively huge foundation stones can also be found at the pyramid at Giza, as well as sites as far away as South America. Did all of these cultures have a communication network capable of sharing known engineering principles with regard to stonework? There are theories surrounding the original purpose of the platform at Baalbek, saying it was once a landing pad for spacecraft, but unfortunately, no real evidence exists to support this theory. However, advances in research has shown that civilizations, far in advance of what is commonly expressed by mainstream academia, did in fact exist in the pre-flood era of mankind, and just how far back those civilizations went is a complete mystery to all those that look into the matter. But the fact remains that there are similarities between different cultures and their respective construction techniques. Trapezoidal shapes are found at the temples in Baalbek, as well as in structures built by the Maya and Aztec cultures in South America. Alternative researchers point out again and again that there is an interconnection between the construction techniques that the mainstream sciences do not want to discuss, let alone advance as a theory or hypothesis. And this is a tragedy, as that science should advance the field, not stifle it. Archaeology as a science has only been in existence for a couple of 100 years, and some argue it is not a science at all, but rather just a collection of opinions made by tenured individuals from universities around the world, and they are oftentimes found to be wrong in those opinions. A good example of this was the insistence by academia of the Clovis man hypothesis, held firmly in place for decades. Despite evidence to the contrary, and once younger, more open-minded archaeologists began to dig a little deeper, they discovered examples of man going much further back in time. Whatever your thoughts or opinions on this matter may be, the fact remains that these massive stones found at Baalbek are truly baffling to comprehend and leave one wondering just how advanced ancient man truly was. Heartfelt thanks goes out to all of you for traveling along with us on this tale of mystery and discovery. Please be sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. This helps us a great deal. This is Professor Poppycock, signing off.